AI is now eating our lunch. So there's a Harvard report came out yesterday that says that 3 out of 4 mid to low level jobs within the next 3 to 5 years are likely to be at risk. Basically what that means is we're not going to be the information knowledge business. The business of selling wool and buyback jumpers is shrinking. And now 1/3 of everything we have is dependent on one country. If it sneezes or gets angry, we're kind of screwed. This is about feeding our kids, and this is about national security.
Presented by Your Energy Answers.
Some of our podcasts you really look forward to because you know that person has humor, has knowledge, can actually be witty with you and even understands German humor. And this is Brian Craighead from Energy Renaissance. Welcome to our latest podcast. Now, this is an interesting one because Brian is a man who lives and breathes batteries. And what are we talking about all at the moment with the battery rebate and where it's going and all that? We're talking batteries. And Brian is actually the man, if you want to ask about building up a battery industry in Australia, Brian's your man. Welcome to Your Energy Answers. Hello, Brian.
Hello, Marcus.
How long have we not seen each other?
Well, I think it's either 10 years or 50 years. It feels like a long time, Marcus. You still look good. I look older all the time.
No. Look, we used to work together at one stage when I was working with LG. We were making solar panels and LG was looking into batteries and all that. And Brian, he had a company called Energy Renaissance. And I love Tuscany. I love Florence, been there many times. And I thought, gee, what a great name. Let's find out what this guy's all about. So, Brian, what have you been up to in the last 10 years?
Well, what we did when we first started, the whole idea was the world is moving, renewable energy is generating the power is going to be great, but what we need to do is store it. Let's make that we're the only country in the world with everything to build these batteries. Let's monetize it. Let's create something that is an Australian-made battery, properly Australian-made.
You're not saying an assembled one with 15 Chinese parts?
Well, actually, still this. Well, that was actually, it would have been much easier and cheaper to do that. And in the first stage, it was definitely that. It was get the cells from China. They're the only ones that make the cells. And then took about 3 or 4 years to find all the other parts, the plastics, the circuit boards, the metal, in Australia. So the thing with it is, the whole mission was, let's design something that can be built here that uses Australian components because it's better for the country. It's harder and more expensive to do that, but it's the right thing to do. So that was the kind of crazy ambition.
Because why? You're creating local employment, you're creating local knowledge, you're building a base from which the industry overall can grow. There's an element of pride. There's an element of engineering. Are these all the positives? I mean, what are the key?
Yeah, I think so I have 2 daughters that are grown up now. And when my daughters were young, we always tried to say, if you have an idea, do something about it. It doesn't matter if it works or not, but always do something about it. And I am very lucky. You might be shocked to hear I'm not originally from Australia. But I feel very lucky to be in Australia. And so let's do
with your accent, I'm sorry to say, it's Irish or?
I'm from the very top of Scotland. The next stop.
Oh my God, I should know.
The next stop is the north. You could have said English. It could have been worse. So basically, here, let's do the math. Right now, 1 in 6 Australians are over 60. In a generation, that'll be 1 in 4. Fossil fuel royalties disappears in 15, 20 years. So we have as a country, we have a fundamental problem. How do we survive? How do we survive as a country when the revenue that we were used to disappears, when folks get older? What do we do? This building things in the countries that make things, make decisions, call the shots. So we need to get back to being sustainable. So we said, look, this is not about batteries, this is about Australia. How do we make something that gives the country a self-sustaining security? And so to do that, you have to make things here. And it's much easier not to. So you have to have a holier mission. And the mission here was to say, look, make things here that's good for our kids, it's good for the country, makes us safer as a country. And so that was the whole point of this, was to do something And this is not really, it's not about me, it's not about the factory, it's not about energy renaissance, or it's not even about batteries really. It's about the country. The country needs to be able to sustain itself. 30 years ago, 15% of 50% of GDP was manufacturing. 20 years ago, it's 10%. It's now under 5%. So it's disappearing.
Is that because the GDP overall has grown and therefore the manufacturing stayed steady and then it's become 5% because the rest of it has grown? Or has it really genuinely gone down?
It's genuinely gone down. I mean, manufacturing now, I'm a computer science guy. Everything to me looks like software. So for me, I started on the same journey as everybody else 11 years ago when I started this. It looked like a technology with some chemistry in it is what I looked at batteries for. And I was surprised, really, I guess kind of shocked at how hard it was to start a manufacturing business here. And the reason for it is, so let's put numbers. We import about 30% of our imports are from China, and 2% of China's GDP comes from Australia. It's a very disproportionate relationship. And it's because it makes sense. It's cheaper and easier to do it than to build things here. So there was a gravity against it. And there was also, I think, you had a scar that I missed. When I came to Australia, I missed the psychological scar a lot of Australians had for car manufacturing in the 80s. And so a lot of people think of manufacturing like noisy, messy, expensive, ugly, low margin. They don't think of it like advanced manufacturing, with little robots doing things. And so as a result, there's an intransigence, there's a gravity against it.
So you're saying our self-image is still of people who dig up opals rather than guys who can build a factory that's fully automated and really making high advanced material. We just don't have that self-confidence?
Well, I think there's easier ways to make money. So, I mean, so 150 years we've sold the wool and bobback jumpers. We get 5 cents a dollar, we get 95 cents back. We are the world's quarry. We've made a good living for 150 years about selling dirt and then buying it back as a product with a logo on it. And that's been okay. And a lot of folks will think, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But it is broke.
The world won't let us do it anymore, is it? I mean, especially in the fossil area.
So, well, here's the thing. When we started the business, and I have done a few tech businesses, started them and sold them and done all right. And so I assumed it would be the same here. And when I went to raise some capital for this manufacturing business, I remember those numbers very clearly. We reached out to 89 organizations, pretty much all the venture capital, private equity, family trusts in the country at the time. 2/3 of them simply would not be able to even talk to us because their mandates didn't allow it. And the other third, for various reasons, was a quick no. So there was literally no fund, no available private funds to support manufacturing startups. That was 10 years ago. That should have been a clue. And the reason was our muscle memory. We got all flabby. It was easier to think of ourselves as a knowledge economy than it was to think of us as builders. And so what had happened is we let those muscles go flabby. Most people talk about manufacturing as if it belongs in a museum. They talk about the past, not the future, when they talk about manufacturing. That's very worrying. In fact, literally, if you want to find out about Australia's manufacturers, you go to museums where they'll show you how we used to build things here, how we used to do things there. We are now, as an economy, we are 105th in the world from a complex economy perspective, which means we have very few things that make up our money.
Can I just point this out to anybody watching this? From a risk profile point of view, the more versatile your economy is, the more if, suddenly there is fossil fuels get taxed overseas by Europe and this and that, and you can't export the coal as much. If there are 52 other things that you do as well, then that one, you lose it, nobody cares. But if you're not diversified, it's a bit like your share portfolio. If you put all your horses on one lot, you could win really big, but you could also be extremely stuffed. So you're saying as a country, with our diversity of where our income is coming, we have let that narrower, and therefore the risk going forward is much higher for us as a future. And when you think about we're an island as well, so quite frankly, if we don't make it here and somebody puts a blockade on us, We maybe have to use leaves as toilet paper.
That's right. That's right. Back to my old days in the Highlands. So I mean, so my view is, not my view. I think where it started was really very simply an older population that is entirely dependent on imports means that we are basically relying on others, and it compounds quickly. So where you get to, and we are in that process now, AI is now eating our lunch. So there's a Harvard report came out yesterday that says that 3 out of 4 mid to low level jobs within the next 3 to 5 years are likely to be at risk. Basically what that means is we're not going to be the information knowledge business. The business of selling wool and buyback jumpers is shrinking. And now 1/3 of everything we have is dependent on one country. If it sneezes or gets angry, we're kind of screwed. So this is about feeding our kids, and this is about national security. It's not even about national energy security, it's about national security. We're a country that is unique in that we've got a big enough place we can feed ourselves with, we can grow and feed ourselves, but we can't do it from a sophisticated economy perspective. We rely on other people. There's no time in history where that has worked out well for a country when it gets too dependent on others. So it's pretty clear we need to make things, and I think.
But you were saying when you were looking at that, and funny like this, how you still know the number 89. 98 or 89? 89 companies he visited that are normally investing into businesses that are startups where they think, we can make money and, this is a great idea, let's go for it. And from their structural setup, a lot of them already go, no, manufacturers, we don't believe in that. There's no way we're going to see that as the future, and therefore that money wasn't available. So it means if somebody else wants to walk into your shoes, and I mean, there isn't just batteries, there are many, many other things. I mean, I say to people going forward, if we're not careful in the future, if China one day puts a blockade up, we won't even have plastic buckets. So from a structural point of view, the way the country is now set up, over many governments, possibly Labor and Liberal, we actually have never seen that as a priority, is it?
I think that's
because I think we make a lot of noise about making in Australia. I've seen a lot of brochures about it. It's supposed to be really important. Is the talk and the reality very different?
Yeah, I think that I've learned a lot from this. It's been a fascinating experience, actually. It's because people would love for me to say the politicians have been hopeless. In 2023, we had 77 politicians visit our factory. But you wouldn't think that's possible. So local,
this man remembers numbers.
Local, state, I'm a numbers guy. Local, state, and federal. Because we're photogenic, we were what they were selling. Future made in Australia, young and old, abled and not so able-bodied, regional Australia making batteries. Very, very cool story. And they believe it. So
which electorate were you in?
We were in Tomago. So we were
That's
in
Newcastle, is it?
Yeah, it's not Newcastle. It's what is it called?
What are the next one?
The next one across.
But I mean, that's all. Labor wants to win that. That's Labor heartland.
Nobody wins as I'm told, nobody wins elections without the hunter. So, and great place to put a business. I would tell anybody who's thinking of manufacturing or building things to do it there. But the thing is this. So they all believe it. The politicians believe it. And in fact, actually, they did things. They created a $15 billion fund for national reconstruction, a $500 million fund for battery breakthroughs. But what happens is, as it goes from concept to reality, the bureaucrats strangle it. The baby gets strangled at birth because what happens is that they view it as they are correctly conservative stewards of other people's money, our taxpayers' dollars. So they start to wrap these in rules about what they'll fund and how they'll fund it and what you need to fund. And before you know it, by the time it arrives, it is moving glacially. And the rules say the only people that can really get the money are the people that don't need the money. So if you have a big balance sheet, or if you have 3 years of forward orders, you're just fine. You will get funding. But if you're a startup or you're trying to scale up, you're kind of screwed. And you're kind of screwed hilariously so, in that the very funds that are meant to help you are literally designed to do the opposite.
So it's about what? The minister comes, gives you the 15 hugs, they take the photos, you're in the brochure, It all smells the right way. It then gets handed to the bureaucrats to manage it. By the time the bureaucrats put the conditions behind it to minimize the risk, you've just been eliminated from the list.
Yeah, well, what they do is they say, let's de-risk this, and the de-risking. So let's put it more plainly, I guess. So if you want to start something, you are most likely not to have a big balance sheet. You're most likely not to have forward orders, not very many forward orders, because you're building something. You're growing. That is exactly how you build something. That's how Atlassian did it. That's how Canva does it. That's how all great stories. We're a country that is built on great entrepreneurs. And that's how you do it. But that's exactly not what a banker does. So I would sum it up this way. Right now, all these great funds, there's literally 15.5 billion. There's at least 15.5 billion available for folks to do things today. But the bankers are in charge. So my view is we let the bankers bank and the builders build. And so when it comes to these funds, they shouldn't be, I shouldn't be as an entrepreneur, and you shouldn't be as an entrepreneur, scored by some ex-Macquarie banker who's looking for a 2-3% return on a startup. They should do that. It's a very clever thing to do for mature businesses. But they're not. They haven't started a business. They don't know what it means to be an entrepreneur. We'll need to let entrepreneurs and builders, people that have done things in the past, that score risk differently, manage some of those funds. So risk to me, if I'm sitting with banker friends and I have a confession, I used to be Anderson's, so I have a lot of some banker friends, and they're not bad people. But their view of risk is economic risk. My view of risk is national risk. What is the risk to the country when we can no longer sustain ourselves, where critical infrastructure has to be imported? What does that mean when somebody else's software is running our grid? What is the risk to the country? What does it mean when our kids won't have any jobs in 3 or 4 years' time? Because we're not building anything and suddenly all the smart jobs have gone. Those are risks that are much bigger than some bankers' 2 to 3% IRR. And so we need to let builders get a bigger voice on things. If you're talking about national reconstruction, get people that have reconstructed things.
Right.
So that's my rant.
No. It's actually not a rant. I feel a bit of passion there.
Yeah.
Aussie passion in a Scottish accent. But the thing is that what you're also telling me indirectly is, the ministers like Eddie Husick or so, he would have possibly been one of the 77 that came and visited and took their photos. They maybe come in with good intentions. They get it. You can get your rant out of the way. They go, yep, national security. But then when it gets handed over to the bureaucrats and then they hand it over to the bankers, that's where it all goes sideways, because everybody is always in a cover ass exercise. So what's the lowest risk? What's the lowest risk? There's not that entrepreneurial thinking. But what it also tells me is that actually the bureaucrat's in charge, not the politician.
The bureaucrats are 100%. But
I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Absolutely that's the case. So,
well, can I just give you a little thing? I was for 13 years working in local government, and I was responsible for a particular area. And if a councillor came in, had a different idea what we thought was the right way, they came every 3 or 4 years. We were experts in slowing it down, killing the goose, making them feel it was going forward, because our ego was, we're in fucking charge. We're the bureaucrats. We're here all this time. We're the German oak. We see the little piglets come, pee on our roots. We've been here for 1,000 years. We've seen hundreds of piglets. How dare you tell the German oak how we should, put our leaves? So unfortunately, I think there are a lot of people who go into this bureaucratic role, have an ego. I kind of admit now I got one. It's kind of actually it's gone small. As you get older, if you're wise, it actually goes smaller.
We're still talking ego, right?
Ego or eagle? You calling me an eagle. No, but my point is that some of these people who go into this position, be it policemen with uniform, there's a motivation in there. And when you become into the bureaucracy, the best ones who get to the top are the ones who are also good at politics. And then these part-time politicians who come and go all the time trying to fight with the guys who are actually really in charge, which run the show. And if you must have had sore lips from kissing so many backsides. I mean, how do bureaucrats react when you kiss backsides? Does it work?
Well, look, no, it doesn't. I mean, well, so how do... it's possible for everybody to do the right thing and get the wrong result. So the bureaucrats aren't bad people. I'm sure they love their kids and they're good people. But they view the job differently. It's risk mitigation, it's management, it's go slow, and nobody wants to get fired. In fact, famously, I can tell it now because it's 25 years ago, I remember at Anderson's when Telstra was our biggest client. It's completely changed now, Telstra people. I used to introduce Telstra people to other Telstra people. And Telstra had this system where if you would get rewarded and promoted based on not screwing things up. So the best way to get through Telstra was to be very busy in projects that never went anywhere. Because you would, at the end of the year, nothing went wrong, you get promoted. So it's the illusion of effort, illusion of progress. So here's what it translates here. I mean, it's possible for lots of people to try the right thing and the wrong result. And so you've got a situation here where good intentions meet kind of this slow strangling of an idea. It is right now. So we built a big battery factory. It was lovely. It was 80 to 90% Australian batteries, all Australian software.
So you had the design going, you physically sourced all your supplier, you were starting to manufacture?
We'd been manufacturing for 4 years. We'd been installing, I forget how many we've got installed now, but it's a couple of hundred different racks of various forms and different sites. So we had been making them for a while. But the thing with this is, if we had gone today to battery breakthrough initiative in Arena and made an application, I can guarantee you that we wouldn't see a check for 14 or 15 months, assuming we went through from today. Mm. So that is effectively infinity in the world of startups. And so...
How about you say 14 to 15 months?
You won't see a check for more than a year. Mm. Now, China's building and the US is building, Europe is throwing up factories like coffee shops right now. So we are now in the world of the quick and the dead. So and you've got a choice, it's either or. Mm. And so what's happening here is that this glacial speed, which we used to get away with because we had fossil fuel royalties and we weren't getting older, doesn't work anymore. And so you have this fundamental clash between ambition and execution. And no one in that mix, those leopards are not going to change a spot. You're not going to say to the bureaucrats, you will get rewarded if you move from 12 months to 1 month in the process. If Arena was KPI'd based on national risk, not economic risk, and they had to move everything through within 3 months, it's either 3 month go or no go, then it would be brilliant, but it won't happen because everybody in there their DNA is to look at risk the wrong way. And so my view is what you've got here is great ambition and good people trying to do the right thing. Ed Husick was a good guy. I like Minister Bowman was a great guy.
Bowen,
good guy, came to the factory a few times. Husick, great guy. We've had good people come to us, a lot of them.
But hang on a second.
But the execution is the problem.
Yeah, so they come, they go, that's a great idea, 5 slaps, here we go, tells these bureaucrats to make it happen. But you see, they already there at the next baby giving it a kiss because they keep on having to be up in the front delivering the good news. They never have the time to stop back and go, oh, how's that project going, and kick it along. You then have to go to them and complain, and then sometimes things move a little bit, but they're not hands-on people.
Well, you can't do that because probity rules say that there's no way a minister could. So let's focus down on the ones that I think are the points of failure. And again, this is not personal because pretty much the people I met have all been good people. You know, that's generally been my
He's looking for a job in the bureaucracy.
Yeah, no. I definitely don't want that. But so they're all good people. But probity says, so let's drill down a bit. Let's drill down on the National Reconstruction Fund, my favourite train wreck.
It's a great name, isn't it?
It's
It inspires national pride.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like putting an Aussie hat on when you say these words.
I think it's true it's national, it's true it's a fund, it is not true it's reconstructing. So it started exactly the right way. We need to reconstruct what we just talked about. We need to build things here for survival reasons. This is a moment. Today the sun is shining. In your industry, the sun is shining. You know, it's good. People are installing solar and batteries. The rebate's going great. Things seem great. I'm talking about what happens afterwards. The storm is coming. We need to prepare now. Now is the time, you know, when you're earning good money, save it. And we're not doing that.
I think there's a story in the Bible, isn't it? 7 years of a good harvest and then 7 years of drought.
There might be. As a dyed-in-the-wool atheist, I'm not allowed to be in the same room as a Bible. But there may well be.
There is one.
There may be near the back, I think it is. So where we're at now is you've kind of got this urgent need to do things, and then we look at how it's executed. So the National Reconstruction Fund is $15 billion spread over three $5 billion tranches. And it is meant to dig us out of holes. It's meant to say, holy schmoly, we need these things. We need critical things need to be built here, at least so that if all hell breaks loose and the shit hits a fan, we can at least survive. Great intentions, exactly the right thing to do, horribly executed. Because what happens then is you meet good ex-bankers who look at this as a Clean Energy Finance Corporation 2.0. They're looking at a 3 to 5 year internal rate of return with as little economic risk as possible. They're basically looking to be a low interest bank. It's exactly what they're not meant to be. And I'm not. This is not just me saying it. I did some analysis. I look at their mandate, and their mandate is actually correct. Their mandate is to look at the things I've just described about.
Yeah, but
the
the
people
mandate was
only look at the economic risk.
Yeah, but hang on. The mandate was put together by bureaucrats. So,
Yeah.
of course, bureaucrats will be feeling right at
Well,
home.
then it's, you know...
But one quick question. Okay, so we're establishing at the moment, the bureaucrats run the show. They're risk adverse. For entrepreneurial matters to succeed, you actually got to be willing to take a bit of a risk. How do other countries manage to get it done?
Well, we're fighting one hand behind our back. China, US, UK says, how do you do it? First thing, normally they're subsidized or at least supported in the early stages. China's model is always heavily subsidized, provide forward orders, so the government will provide forward orders. Once it's up on its feet, take those support away. That's the Chinese way. They do a very good job of it. That's true in most countries. Here, a good example. Here, if you run a radio station, you have to pay 25% of it has got to be Australian music. If you buy $1 billion of batteries, 0% has to be Australian. So
hang
how
on.
other countries do it
That
is by
$2.3 billion of battery rebate, which is a great golden opportunity to move our local battery industry forward. Did we mandate that there was a certain component element of local content to be required in the battery, which would have helped start an industry?
No. We asked for it. We thought we were going to get it. And at the 2 minutes of midnight, it didn't happen. And so let's be clear.
Do you know why?
It was too hard. It was going to take too long. The devil's in the detail.
Meaning, they needed the rebate out now. They needed the benefits now. They need the kudos now. And in order for your supply chain to supply, let's say, Chinese batteries, they wouldn't be available in the market.
No. It was the paperwork or the details they need to put into the program, the things they need to write up from a legal perspective, all got too hard. They needed us to move quickly. So let me put the real perspective. $2.3 billion means, let's say that's $1 in $4 or $1 in $5. So that's $9 billion of spend that will be effectively entirely transferred to China. So that is a transfer of Australian wealth to another sovereign country. And all of the batteries being installed, there is no exception, runs software that we don't control at all. We have no idea what that software does, and we never will have full idea. There's no transparency in it. There's no cybersecurity protection there. That's a transfer of wealth to another country and an incredible increase in risk. Now,
But it makes the minister look good.
well, it's good for the
Maybe get
everything is-
re-elected, and that's what it's all about.
Well, it's also, we've been talking about, it is good that, just to be clear, from from a sustainability perspective, it's great that people are storing their energy and using it. It's great for the country in some ways. But like everything else, there's always shades of grey here. And my view has always been, so I'll let's be really clear.
Just be blunt.
If for example, middle-level bureaucrats will tell you can't do this. Senior ones will say we do it 1,000 times, which is, if tomorrow the government said, screw this risk is crazy, 10% of every battery installed must be from Australia. I don't have a horse in this race. We shut our factory down. So this is for others. If they did that, you would have, and I'm very confident of this, you would have 3 or 4 truly sovereign Australian battery manufacturers thriving within 6 months to 12 months. Because that is, I can't do the math properly, but it's basically about $3 billion over 3 years, $3.5 billion. So it's a lot of money. So how you do it, there's 3 things that other countries do that we don't do. The first thing is when the eggs are newborn, they feed them. So they help them. And that doesn't mean grants and handouts. That's the best thing they could do, is give surety of order. So the government should be the first people to order. If there's a taxpayer dollar attached, they should say 10 or 20% of this must be Australian.
So
that
let's say
guarantee solves everything.
So if we put batteries, let's say, into government buildings, then they would say, okay, we order that particular product.
No, I think what they do instead is say, all right, Fluence or whoever is installer, whoever the developer is, you want to stick 0.5 gig of battery into a field somewhere, and we like that. Well, that's fine. So 50 megawatt hours of that must be Australian, meaning it must have 80% Australian content, 100% Australian software. Right. You can solve that because the financer, that's just, if you want the approval, that's what you need to get, or 20%, whatever that figure is. Nobody's paying any money. The government's not paying any money. That's not costing them anything. The developers do the math, and it's not going to cost them much more. And then now you've reduced the national exposure, the risk level, because now you have a sustainable local business. And what I just described happens all the time in other industries.
Absolutely correct. I hear regularly that we, let's say, got EV bus manufacturers locally. They put a tender in, but then we still get them out of Spain or out of China, out of other places, and the local place closes up. And maybe the difference in cost would have been 10, 15%. And for that, you would have lowered the risk, created local employment, improved an industry to grow, to maybe become an export industry. But because risk is possibly not one of the things on the criteria of the Excel spreadsheet, they miss out.
Well, risk isn't, it's viewed through a monocle, not spectacles. They're looking at one perspective of risk, which is economic risk. It might be a bit more expensive, but that's actually not true. Because if you think of the broader thing, okay, but what does it mean if we have fewer people working? And what does it mean if we have the risk of this exposure to imports and rising costs? So if you view risk holistically to the country, then it is far, far more sensible to build some things here, at least critical things. So how
I mean, we're even proud of ourselves, isn't it? I mean, you build something, man. I kind of say to, I mean, I don't know if you know, my wife's in politics. I've watched the whole thing a bit. And I go, I know what Australia used to be like 20 years ago, you know, in terms of the car manufacturing and the Forex beer and all those things. But Forex is now foreign owned. The cars are kind of gone. We're kind of losing all these bits and pieces, but there's nothing new growing up in replacement of it. I hear about the green steel. I hear about the trying to create ammonia with the solar and all that, and therefore all the energy that is landing on the country, we can reuse that and turn that into fertilizer and then export that, and that's actually exported energy. I hear all that, but then when you look at the execution of those large projects, from Sun Cable through to what Fortescue tried to do, it always gets built up first with a big PR story, but then bit by bit you hear, oh, they're closing this, they're not going ahead with that, and this and that. There seem to be these hurdles sitting there that we as an outsider don't know. But my whole point of my little rant is, I don't know what Australia in the future is going to stand for and how we're going to make our buck.
That's exactly right. I mean, so now is a good time to panic. And the reason I say that is that AI is going to eat our lunch. So the jobs that we thought our kids have, the jobs that most people have here are going, not in 20 years like people seem to think, in a few years. Fossil fuel royalties are going. We now have 30 to 35% of our country's critical things rely on one country for import. We are in trouble, and we got to shake ourselves a little bit away from the stupor here, because, in the next 20 years, if 1 in 6 people are 60 today and 1 in 4 are 60 tomorrow, we have a shrinking workforce at the same time. Everything is pointing to the need for urgent action. And you can't shrink your way to success. You have to grow. So what we have that no one else has is there are certain things we have that no one else in the world has. Batteries are a good example, actually. We are the only country in the world that could build a brick wall around Australia, and everything you need is in this country. We don't have to import any material from anywhere to do everything. No other country can do that. And this is a product that the world needs.
You mean the lithium, or what are you talking
lithium-ion
about?
batteries, yeah. So we choose not to do it because what I've learned, I guess, more than anything, is that the gap between the speed of movement, the sluggish kind of snail-like speed of movement, isn't fit for purpose in a world that's moving this fast. So one thing I can say for sure, and I think everybody would agree with me, you'd agree with me, hopefully it never happens, but if we woke up tomorrow and we're at war with someone.
He says with someone.
Someone.
No country mentioned.
If we were at war with someone or had a big conflict, within 6 months we'd be making the things we need. Because suddenly all the problems, if you remove intransigence in funding and if you shift it quickly, then you can do it. So this is not can we do it? This is do we want to do it?
Can I ask a silly question? If we'd be at war with somebody, would we actually have 6 months?
Well, you need to move pretty quickly. Look, COVID.
No, hang on. You're going into those really deep and meaningful bits. Let's just ask the question. We're an ally of America, and China is our biggest trading partner. It's kind of really a paradox reality. And when I study history, it looks like whenever one power hands power over to another power, I think there were the Anglo-French wars. At one stage, England was quite powerful and America took over and all that. A lot of things happened. It never goes that somebody hands the key over to the room and says, here, mate, you can have my hotel suite now. There's always a bit of rumble-bumble going on. Now, should we actually be on America's side? Should we be spending $350 billion on those bloody, I use the German word, U-boats? Is that really sensible to kind of put our eggs in that basket? Or is Australia much smarter where we're located in Asia to have a more neutral position? Wouldn't that be a little bit smarter in the overall bigger picture than actually set us up as a target? Those are the questions. Our politicians never talk about that. They go and shake both hands. They go and they say, we're friends with everybody. But our secret services and all that, they're not working with one side versus the other. And things are demonized. Media is going this way, media is going that way. I'm not even allowed, if I talk, allowed to raise this as an issue. But as a country, shouldn't we really self-examine a little bit where we want to sit in the world? And America is not much more democratic than China is currently. So why don't we create the better democracy and make the rest of the world look at us and say, America, guys, actually the way we do it is a bit more fairer to people. You start screwing it up. It's going to be done the dictatorship way. And China, a bit more freedom for some of your citizens and not the total big state with all the CCTV cameras everywhere. Maybe that's something you could consider. And we actually can be the Sweden or the Norway or the whatever of the world, because physically we're in a good spot because Asia is the growing part of the world. we can be a good example, isn't it? I'm
Yeah.
sorry to carry on
No,
now,
no.
but when you start saying, the war and this and that, we shouldn't be in any bloody war. We shouldn't be a target. Our politicians should be smart enough to walk the line finally and not kiss one ass over the other. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, the best way to get, if the best way to move into the future is without having to necessarily depend on anybody. We are much stronger as a country if we don't have to depend on someone. We have some self-reliance. The more you depend on a partner, the weaker your negotiation position is. And right now, we are extremely weak in that we need products from a partner. And by the way, I'm a big fan of what China's done. It's remarkable, but we're really dependent on them. So you need to
Do you think the dependency has gone so hard that it's not healthy anymore? So strong?
It's never healthy. I mean, if you depend on it in your life, if you go home and you find that if you have one job and you're really on the nail, your boss hates you, and any minute you could get fired and there's no future prospect, you don't know where you're getting another job from, you should be worried. The more dependent you're on one partner, one source, the higher your risk. And we are accelerating that. That has doubled in the last 20 years. So you have to we are weaker and weaker when we rely more and more on others. So the strongest position to be is where you are truly partners, independent of each other. And so it boils down to the countries that control things make things. And that's always been the case. So the less you make, the weaker you are.
But I mean, we do have the tyranny of distance. So if you make things in Australia and you ship them away, then your product potentially is a little bit more expensive. And then when you compete with a big mothership like China, how can you without subsidies? To give you an example, I mean, solar panels, I started the industry when they were $1,400 a panel at 144 watts. And now they're less than $100 because China turns them out not just in the millions, I think in the hundreds of millions. And therefore, a solar panel is cheaper than a whiteboard, even so there's much more technology in it. So how could we then start a local industry in something like that where we got somebody, it's like running a marathon and the guy started an hour before us.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be mad to fight on. So first of all, a race to the bottom. If you're in a race to the bottom on price, if scale and price are what you're competing on, you're going to lose every time. We will never be able to compete. We simply cannot compete on scale and price. So where the safe places are in the niches, you want to go where there's mystery equals margin. So you want to go where there's complexity or cleverness or niches. We didn't go to compete with, I mean, these are good products. Cattle's product's a good product. The BYD product, I'm assuming, is a good product. These are good products. They're not bad products. You can't compete head on scale. You have to use your strength. It's judo. Small guys beat big guys all the time in judo because they use their strengths and they go for the opponent's weakness. And so when they go for scale and mass, you go for niches. What we did for us was we made sure our software is 100% cyber secure, the only one in the country, and we made sure that we were focused on hot climate, a very niche sort of application. If heat and temperature and security were your concern, we're the right one. If it's not, just go and buy your Chinese battery. So you've got to run for the niches. They are where the margin is. Higher margin products are in the niches. Mystery equals margin, as I said. And that's where Australia can succeed. It has in the past. I mean, you look at Cochlear, you look at these guys. That's where they succeeded. You make things that are high margin niche products because you can move faster. We always think of this dominant scale, unbeatable scale. But the big thing with scale, the big disadvantage of scale, is there's a reason speedboats are used sometimes, not cruiser ships, because they can move fast and turn a dime. And we're not going to be a cruiser against these big economies, but we can be speedboats. And that's how you win. And then we go back to where the break is. If fundamentally we need to change, we need to become more sustainable to have a future where we can control we control our future for our kids, then I've just said we need to move fast, which means ARENA needs to make decisions in 6 weeks. good or bad, National Reconstruction Fund, if it's more than 8 weeks to make a decision, those people belong elsewhere. They shouldn't be in that organisation. Things need to move fast, because otherwise it doesn't fit with what we need. Sorry, Marcus.
No, it's fine. But I mean, aren't those people on those boards and all that in 15 other boards, and they just turn up for a cup of tea every couple of months and all that? Isn't it all by design already done to make a slow decision?
It's designed because, like I say, Roman Empire fell because every general in the Roman Empire was making exactly the right decision as they were ordered to. They were making exactly the right decisions strategically they've been told to do. But together, everyone making good decisions came up with a terrible answer. So what happens here is if you talk to, I have no doubt, if you talk to anybody in those organizations individually, they've got the job, they've got their KPIs, they're working to them, working hard, and they're probably doing a good job. But combined, it's a train wreck. So what you have to do is say, hold on a second, we have to change. So in my view, I remember anecdotally, and this is, actually I can tell it now because it's a long time ago, we had a meeting with Clean Energy Finance Corporation in the early days. And the guy that was running his little venture capital spin-off thing, and I think it was probably just to satisfy some politicians, because they are fundamentally just a low-interest debt lender. And we said, look, we're starting this up. It's great for the country. We need $5 or $10 million. We'll match it. We put 40 million of our own money in here, so we weren't asking for handouts. And the guy was very proud to tell me that, he said, look, I'm very busy, and we see 100 things. We would make one deal out of the 100 we see. And so my colleagues said, well, I can tell you, if somebody worked for me that had a 1% success rate, they'd be fired in 2 weeks. So we have to change the mindset of these guys. And the way to do it is to remove time. In my view, if you went in tomorrow, if I was the minister and said, you know what, we're changing rules, good, bad, all decisions that come to ARENA, all decisions that come to NRF have got to be made within 8 weeks, from go to woe, all decisions. And if you can't do that, you've got to change your team. And that, what I just described, could do it tomorrow. That's just personal. And we are in charge. Those people are in charge of recruitment. So therein lies my other rant.
Okay. But look, what happens is, Australians, because maybe a lot of people came here as a migrant and they did it tough and all that, there's a high level of street smartness going on. And so lately I read a lot of things about this scam here and the guy who worked in a procurement office and he then funneled the funds from the RTA to, his construction company that was run by his cousin and all that. And I go, wow, these people are so ingenious on how to find a way to siphon money out of the public purse. I mean, don't get me started on the NDIS. I see more coloured vans now that are all financed by us, driving around, half comatose people going nowhere, and it's not really helping productivity. But there's a good principle behind it in the first place. It's just when it gets rolled out, everybody sees a free lunch and comes for it. So these people in these boards and all that, when they see, sees 100 people, maybe you're the guy who really wanted to build a battery, but trust me, there's maybe 20 guys who want to invent solar paint that I can paint on buildings. That's a complete WA and K, and it's never going to go anywhere. So they have to kind of assess it properly so it kind of doesn't get squandered away.
Well, all that would be true if we were describing something no other country or no other had solved. But we're not. We're much, much slower. So let me...
But I think there are more scammers in Australia too, so you kind of got to put the sieve a little bit tighter. Look, I'm on your side. I think bureaucracy kills a lot of good ideas, and what you've been describing here literally for the last hour is the saying that I say all day, at least 2 or 3 times, which is the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Everybody tries to do the right thing, but when you stand in the middle of it at the end, you go, this is a shit sandwich. What happened here? But can we kind of shift it a little bit, because what actually happened to you? You had a great idea. I'm actually working out you're smarter than me. There's no, you are because, working on the niches, focusing on heat, and it's possibly things that are cumulative come from you, from other smart people that you surround yourself with. So it really sounds like if you'd come to me, you make a lot of sense. Yes, we need batteries. You've got all this sun. I mean, we built solar up over the last 10 years. We didn't think of the other side, which is the storage. Completely duh. We now have too much solar, too much of a good thing. Or, we built all these orange vineyards and we didn't have an orange juice factory, that kind of thing. So, but what's your own personal story? How did you come from a great idea, knowing what you want? You still got passion in you, so you knew how to talk. What happened?
So I think, so there's a combination. So in a nutshell, for those who don't know, we set out to build properly Australian, I keep saying properly Australian, in that we wanted to use as many Australian components as possible. We had to use Chinese cells, but the ultimate ambition was to get big enough that we could then make cell manufacturing as well. So we had a big ambition, and it was for national security reasons. It was a kind of a holy mission to help the country. And that's genuinely is what it was. It wasn't to make it look good in the side of a sticker or a bus or something. It was to help the country. I feel like I've repay a debt for them allowing me to stay here. So we set out to do that. We realized very quickly we wouldn't get any support, so we funded it ourselves. Me and other shareholders, ultimately we put about $40 million into it. We realized very quickly, my view is, again, I'm a software guy, and my view, I continue to say I am astonished that we let other software run our critical infrastructure. It wouldn't happen anywhere else. So we spent the money with CSIRO to write the software, design a product for heat. We did a bunch of tests. And so it cost a lot of money. We built a factory. It took us forever to build that factory because nobody had done one before and nobody knew how to prove it. And about 4 years ago, we started building batteries. And so where we got to is, and it was a okay business. It was doing okay. It needed to get bigger, and that was the biggest issue. And sales were up and down. We'd sell a few million, then we'd struggle, then we'd sell a few. And it was kind of because we weren't quite there. We were always a bit undercapitalized. And then what happened? 3 things happened very quickly. One of our investors put in some money, but still owes a bunch and just wouldn't come up with the rest of the money. Unexpectedly so, we suddenly had millions of dollars that were meant to be in a bank that weren't there. That happened just as China started dumping into the market in a really pretty serious way. And so we started to see these crazy deals. And dumping isn't just prices. Dumping is terms. So they would say to somebody, Markus, take our batteries for $20 million of batteries, pay us $5 now and we'll get the rest later. Or we'll give them to you if you buy our panels and those type of things. And so those sort of deals were killing the sales traction.
So suddenly you saw your sales
really started to really die off,
is it?
It was probably more that what was happening is they were just slowing right down. 4-week decisions become 4-month decisions or longer. So that was really impacting us. And then the thing that really killed us is the National Reconstruction Fund. In that we had applied.
Hang on, that should help you.
You'd think so. So there's 2 things. One is the Battery Breakthrough Initiative, which was meant to be the savior of our business. It actually opened 10 months late, 6 days after we put the factory into voluntary administration. Almost a perfect example of how to screw things up.
Hang on, couldn't you have kind of unscrambled that egg?
No, we would never use, I'm sure they wouldn't have allowed us anyway, we would never use public funds to rescue a V8 business. We did look about doing something different to spin it into another business, but it all got too hard.
So hang on. Let me get this right. So you've been working many, many years to build up a battery manufacturing business in Australia. You got it to scale. You are getting a sales channel together. You're smacked about by Chinese imports, but you still keep your head high. The government decides there is an importance for a battery manufacturing in Australia. So they put $500 million aside. They then, open up for funding, and they give you deadlines. Then that gets delayed by 10 months. So you're kind of looking at that rescue beacon. You're kind of a bit in trouble. And finally, you got to close the doors. And 6 days later, the money is available. Is that kind of, did I get all that right?
It's slightly worse than that because...
That's kind of like a Greek tragedy.
Yeah, it's kind of slightly worse than that because the National Reconstruction Fund, we the factory, because our technology, our defense business was fine, but the whole point of this was to build the damn thing here, the factory. And the National Reconstruction Fund, not an individual, but as an entity, the villain of the piece, in my opinion, because we applied in February, they turned us down. We knew we weren't big enough. We applied in April, and we now had a revenue story, but some other reason. And then we applied one last time, and it was a crazy decision. I mean, like a crazy decision not to support us, in my opinion. And the way it was viewed is this. It's like a gardener who's worried about his water. So the gardener doesn't water the plants. And then when the plant dies, says, see how clever I was to not water, because now look, they're all dead. And so after we put the factory into VA, you had these NRF people saying, well, we were clever not to support them because look, it's in VA. Yeah, that's the reason it's in VA. So you have, again, what you have is let the bankers bank, but they shouldn't be in control of things that are strategic to the country. So my solution, for what it's worth, is you should say 20%, let's say 20%, $100 million of the ARENA funds and whatever that is, $1 billion of NRF should be managed by an entirely different group of entrepreneurial builders. And they make decisions in 4 weeks. Most of the time it's no, it's a quick no though. No, don't like it, no, don't like it, yes, and you got the check in 4 weeks. And then you will see movement. You have $1 billion, your solar audience will know this. There's $1 billion sunshot thing or whatever that fund is called. Great example. It is crazy because if I'm in the solar business and I try and get money from that, I can't get money from that unless I build another factory that I don't need, and then it's no problem because it looks like something different. So you need speed, and you need people that are used to building things. As far as I can tell, nobody in these organizations has entrepreneurial built successful businesses, as far as I can tell. I may be wrong.
You mean in terms of their background?
In terms of background, yeah.
No, they make their way through the bureaucratic ladder.
Yeah.
And the least risk, the most risk averse are usually the ones that get most successful. So then that philosophy gets applied across the risk.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fundamentally different. Look, I would say if I'd be in government and I'd have the 3, 4, 5 billion to play with, just like with the 2.3 billion battery money, I would have put $100 million aside to start a local recycling business.
Yeah.
Because even right now with solar panels, after 15, 20 years, they're all coming off now. It's very higgledy-pickledy on the recycling side of things. Now, we're supposed to be the green and clean industry. We can't even get right to use the toilet paper properly. I mean, meaning get rid of the panels in an economic and recycled way. So the first thing is actually develop some capacity downstream. Secondly, put a certain money aside for the local area, meaning at least 25% every time of these funds should be allowed to be given to a more high-risk element, because as we know with shares, sometimes the ones with higher risk also give you more return. So you got to kind of, if you want to have balanced balance sheet, don't just be all the conservative corner, because the conservative corner will always give you the same result.
Look, I mean, it's exactly your balanced portfolio analogy is a really good one. I'd also take $100 million and create a certification body here, because one of the biggest issues here is you need things that UL certified for this or UN various certifications, and in almost all cases, as an inventor here, you get a crazy situation where you invent and then you have to ship disassembled products overseas to be reassembled in Taiwan or US or whatever, to get certification and then ship back. It's an incredible barrier to movement here. So if you had your $100 million in recycling and your $100 million in some body,
proper certification body,
you would remove barriers. But the other thing is, like I would say, keep it simple. Step one, if there's taxpayer dollars or approval, all projects need 20% Australian content, not bullshit Australian content where they're just importing, peeling off the cattle badge and sticking on the other badge, but actually Australian content. First thing is 20% Australian content if there's a taxpayer dollar on that approval. The second thing is these.
But the bureaucrat will be told, oh, well, then we can't find the product because that'll take 5 years to build up and you can't, open your battery scheme and therefore you can't get the kudos and you need that battery scheme, otherwise your lights will go out locally, etc. So those pressures would then force the politicians, even maybe in their heart they want to have that 20%, they will be told by the bureaucrats it's too difficult.
But and everything's impossible until it's not, because the way you do that is you say, okay, and if they don't exist today, and the certifying body would be the Australian Border Force, I'd imagine, if they don't exist, you move ahead. But as soon as they exist, they have to be part of that mix. You have to. I've heard plenty of arguments about how it's not possible until it is possible. Happens all the time. This is how you do it. So you mandate that. At least give that industry, the solar and battery industry, should at least have the same Australian content rules as a local radio station. So mandate that. The second thing is speed everything up. So if you can't make a decision in 8 weeks through one of these funds, you don't belong in that fund. You are not fit for purpose. National Reconstruction Fund should be about national reconstruction, not about 3 to 5 year internal rate of returns. So those funds need to view risk to the country ahead of risk, short-term economic risk. So those two things I've just described, if you did those two things, you'd have thousands of people employed in advanced manufacturing within 12 months. Thousands. Because without anybody spending any more money than is already out there.
But I think our fundamental issue, even if you solve these problems, isn't really the number of engineers and electricians and all of that we have available. Isn't that also a barrier? And our, migration policies, I hear the rumor that some of the unions say, don't get me more tradespeople in, then the costs come down and, that's not good for our members. So we're getting a lot of Uber drivers, but we're not getting a lot of really skilled migrants in. I mean, I don't hear many engineers from Germany coming to Australia lately. I mean, we don't seem to be seeking the smarter people. We seem to be trying to get the people to fill the more meaningless jobs, which in the future, really, is that where the future is? I mean, if we're dumbing the whole country down, I don't know if it's a good idea. But coming back to your kind of experience, I do believe, yes, the bureaucrats are one of the things, but because we really haven't been thinking like this for a lot of times, as you said, when you were start looking for the plastics to purchase to put into the batteries and wrap and all these things, you would have had trouble. There weren't 50 you could pick from because we actually have let this all go to weed. I mean, it's been a good lawn once and we just haven't been the weed attender. And yes, you can do one corner, but then you look at the whole other 500 square meter and you go, gee, a lot of weeds there that you've got to still fix. I just been importing stuff, building a couple of big warehouses near the airport, putting a margin on it, getting a website, flogging it that way, has been the very easy way for Australia to increase their productivity. But long term, it's all very hollow.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. I mean, of course, it's the easy way. We would have made a lot more money just doing what you said. Very easy to do. I'd have containers of Chinese residential batteries and shipping them in, probably do all right in the short term. Terrible in the mid-term. There's no sustainable business, and also for the country, it's blinking terrible. You seem
to be the only one who gives the stuff about Australia. Mm-hmm. I mean, seriously, everybody else is cushy and feeling comfortable, and we all look at a horse that we're riding called self-interest, and we all one day will look at in hindsight and go, oh, gee, creating that high dependency as an island, that wasn't that smart. We just lost the car manufacturers. We just lost the glass guy. We lost the plastic making guys. We lost the refineries. Oh, it's all available overseas, and it's possibly right now cheaper till when they have you really in the trap. I mean, it's a bit like, I just think it's a bit like one of those cat traps when you see they want them. They feed them for a couple of weeks to get them used to the trap, and the cat feels really nice. Oh, look, I get this free food. But eventually it goes bling, and it goes shut. And we maybe as a country are all big cat.
We are asleep at the wheel. You know, we're going to bed at night, leaving the door unlocked. So we have, it's exactly where we're at. And so here's the thing. One thing you can be sure of is nothing's going to change unless something changes. And so the way to do this, look at a lot of your folks will be involved right now in the solar and battery residential thing. The sun is shining. I'm sure they're enjoying
No, they
the
got all
sunshine.
growing pains.
Right, but there you go. But it feels like we're talking about the rainy day that comes after the sun is shining. But it comes quickly. And so what we need to do here is we need to say, well, what change do we need to implement, and how quickly can we do it? So we've done it before as a country. So individually, nobody has buying power here. When people are doing projects, we tend to pay quite a lot for batteries and solar and various other things because our buying power is not what others are in other parts of the world. But as a group,
I don't get that. Can you explain that? What do you mean with buying power?
So if you're a developer,
Yeah.
just now you're paying, and you want to do your finance for a couple of 100 megawatts of solar and battery project, you're going to get a good but not great deal on those component parts because there's people that may be big for this project, but there's somebody in some other part of the world that's doing something 20 times as big. So you don't have the buying power as an individual developer that others do. But as a country, we're one of the biggest buyers of this technology in the world.
Right.
Aggregate. Now, so this seems like a really obvious way. So how do we do this in the past? We've done it with grain and we've done it with wool in the past. We aggregate to get the buying power. Imagine for a second, Marcus, if there was an entity called CleanCo or whatever, there probably is one called CleanCo. And it said, we're going to aggregate all your projects that need solar panels and batteries and various other technologies. We're an aggregated buying entity, just like we did for wool and grain. And then it goes to the global market and says, all right, solar panel, I know we're going to pay you 50% less. We're going to pay you the same price as other parts of the world big buyers go, because we're now a big buyer. You would have, like we've done in the past, everybody in that loop wins. The folks selling the equipment are getting lower prices but higher volume. Everyone in the country is getting faster product with better prices and much better support because they're now a big company, big customer. And then everything moves faster. And that is what I just described. That is a $60 billion a year entity. So there's a country now, we have a serious mover. Imagine that would create tens of thousands of jobs, reduce the cost of everything, speed everything up, everybody wins. And that is not a fairy tale. We've done it before. We did it with grain, we did it with wool. And really what we're talking about here is the grain and wool of the 21st century. So what you have here is a lot of folks earnestly doing the right thing in a wrong way and nobody joining the dots up. And so in my opinion, you need the bankers to bank, the builders to build, and we need to think much more joined up about how to do this the right way. Let's assume for a second I'm right. I hope I'm not, but let's assume I'm right. That in 5 years, 40% of the jobs that everybody has today are gone because of AI. 40%. So everyone will know 3 or 4 people that lose their jobs and don't get them back again and have no way of getting another job because they're in a knowledge industry. Let's assume I'm right. Let's assume Harvard's right.
Are you talking from AI perspective, is it?
So let's assume Harvard's right.
Is that what they're predicting?
Yeah. So let's assume Harvard's right. Let's assume that I'm also right, that the fossil fuel royalties will continue to decline over the next 15 years. So those two things, and final thing is in 10, 15 years' time, there'll be, instead of 1 in 6, there'll now be 1 in 5 people are over 60, so the shrinking working population. Those 3 things are kind of cataclysmic unless you make a big move. You're not going to shrink your way to this. So that's how you do it.
Maybe we just then need more bureaucracy.
That's right. We need more rules. Let's do it slower. You know what this needs? You remember the movie Life of Brian?
Yes.
Right. So Brian gets taken by the Romans and they run in and they say, Brian's been captured. What are we going to do? And they said, oh my God, it's a disaster. This requires an urgent meeting. And they all sit down and start discussing it. So we don't need more urgent meetings or white papers or strategy papers. We probably just need to do things.
Yeah, but I think you need a really bit of... I'm not a friend of Donald Trump, by the way. I think the guy has a few issues.
I think you're right.
He will be in future, psychologists will use him as a
Yeah.
as a bit of a case study. When I was in Germany in history, in my school, we studied Hitler's speeches.
Yes.
I think there'll be,
Yes.
the Trump personality.
I think that's right.
We'll kind of go through. But you possibly would need a politician with a bit of a stronger ego to kind of just cut through the bullshit and say, this is where we need to go. But usually that only comes out in the middle of an emergency. And if you look at our political landscape right now, I think we've had 15 years to 20 years of climate policies now, and the Liberal Party still hasn't come to a position.
Well, you've got the flip side of it is so I agree. I guess what I'm sort of saying, we have a slow moving train wreck here, in that because the sun is shining, we're not paying attention to what's going on.
We haven't actually bought umbrellas, is it?
We're not bought umbrellas. but the flip side of it is there is actually genuinely. So imagine this: you have a government that can do what it wants right now, federally, if it wanted to. You have the money is already there. There's
You got
billions
a
of
very
dollars in
cautious
bucket.
prime minister.
Yeah, you do. But think of it this way: you have the votes to do anything you want to, if you really needed to. You have the money already there. The money is already there, and you have under 30. You've got basically no chance of buying your own house. You're staring in a barrel of those same people. The only people that will get you re-elected are more aware than we are, us old codgers, at least me, of what's coming with AI and what's coming with the way things are shifting. Doctors and lawyers and all the safe jobs are going. So they know that. They know there's a bigger problem than everybody else. So fine, let's do something about it. I think folks would be surprised. Now, the old codgers, the people that kind of the NIMBYs and the people that still think climate isn't changing, those guys, they'll still be there but they'll die off. The issue here is right now we're barreling towards a crisis and nobody's paying attention. At some point that crisis will become real and then all hell will break loose. We might as well fix it now. The upside to it though is you're talking about a sunlit plain here. You're talking about something where we could make a shitload of money as a country very quickly by doing something that we've done before and just being smarter by joining the dots. Again, everything I've said is not new money.
Give me a quick example. What are you saying? Are you talking about all the sunshine that we're getting, which is much more than the rest of the world? And sunshine is energy. And if we turn that energy into healthy, renewable energy, then we got an export product that is worthwhile around the world? Or are you talking about the food that if we take less pesticides in it, we can become the food bowl of healthy, unaltered, ungenetic food that has a value in the world? Are you talking about those kind of visions?
Yeah, let's be more specific. So we should be, I mean, the sunniest country with the biggest space and all the materials to do it, we should be a giant player in this transition to renewable energy. We all know that. We should be. But as you said, we have to hide in the niches. In the niche spaces, we could become an export giant here. And the reason I say that is with the right will and joined up dots, we wouldn't compete head to head with race to the bottom products, panels and those things. It's hard to see that. It's hard to see EVs. You need an industry here, and we've only got 28 million people. But there's lots and lots of other things we could do and export that benefit from the fact that we join the dots up. So if all these initiatives that are spread through state and federal government and the funds that are available are joined up with a policy that says 20% of everything needs to be here if it exists, then in the blink of an eye, you've created an industry that is, I can't do the math off the top of my head, but it would be bigger than a wine and wool industry within 12 months, and it would keep on growing from there. So you are.
But are those entrepreneurs out there?
This is a country of entrepreneurs. This country was built on people being entrepreneurial. You're an entrepreneur. The people in that room are entrepreneurs. This is what this country is. 250 years, 60,000 years of great history. In the last 250 years, it turned that into a country of entrepreneurs. You can only survive if you build things. But now the gravity, the weight around those necks are the bureaucratic process. So you lift the weights. everybody in this country wants to succeed. They want a big house on the beach. They want a lovely life. They want healthy kids. People want this. And it's a great country to be an entrepreneur if you are not in the build business. So we just need to lift the weight off the build business. So my view is you have super smart people that are ready to go, and we just need to give them a chance.
I mean, Eddie Husic seemed to be quite a not bad minister in his field, but they've pushed him aside. What happened there?
It's funny, the more I meet these politicians, the less I know about politics. I really liked Ed Husic. He came to our factory. He's a rock solid guy. So I don't understand the politics of it. I was disappointed when he went. As I said, most of the politicians have met really good. We've had really good, impressive. Pocock was really impressive. Meryl Swanson is a local member, fantastic. These are good people that genuinely. But I kind of don't understand the politics of it. The issue is I've learned.
Maybe they're
the
just good actors, and they kiss your ass and say all nice things to your face, and when they walk out, go, oh, bloody,
I don't know.
He's just a dreamer.
That's
just
not been
don't
my
waste
experience.
your time on it.
It'd be so easy for me to say that's the case. That's not been my experience. My experience is that these guys are working. They seem to work like 14, 15 hours a day, going from thing to thing. But they meet a lot of people like me that are excited about some frog-eyed sprocket. Ed Husic probably met another 9 of me in them one day. It's not them. They've done their job. I would say they've done their job. They've got $15 billion funds set across here. They've got $500 million funds set across there. They've done what they can do as politicians. No point.
So you're saying they're handing it over to the bureaucrats, and that's when it just dies in the wall.
Yeah, I mean, and like this is not me waving my hands. You can point to fact. What is the average time it takes from first engagement to cash coming from Arena? Ask Arena that.
And what is it? You must have the number.
Well, my understanding is 14 months.
Right.
So
basically when you're in the entrepreneurial space and the bills have got to be paid and you've got staff to keep motivated and you have a vision, 14 months to wait between you explaining what you want to do, starting a little bit something, maybe even self-financing it, it is basically the difference between life and death.
I mean, it's infinite. I mean, bear in mind that I think now, was it last year, the year before, China was opening a new factory every 4 weeks.
In 4 weeks?
In 4 weeks, every 4 weeks.
In that whole renewable space, is it? Or just
space.
any manufacturing?
No, and just renewables, in battery-related factories, every 4 weeks.
A new one?
A new one, a new facility. They've now got a facility, BYD's facility, if I get this number right, you will find it, your viewers will find this later, but the facility they're just about to open, I think, is 50 square kilometres of footprint. And that's not just all factory, there's storage as well. But these things move fast. We took 18 months to get approval of our factory. So you just need to move a bit. You just need everything needs to move a bit faster.
Listen, I'm getting very depressed.
Sorry. I think.
Oh my God! I've got water here, but I should have actually put alcohol in here.
Well, I show you
kind of like. Okay, can I change the subject a bit? Maybe something that's really uplifting and positive. Okay, the new battery rebate. Everybody's celebrating it. Chris Bone is running around. 100 batteries installed. Admittedly, probably 99,000 are all coming directly from China. So we have made a big transfer of our funds directly to China, but then they can use that again to buy the lithium from us and then put it in their battery and sell it back to us at 10 times the price. How do you see that whole baby running? And the positives? But I actually see a lot of risks.
Well, look, I mean, I think you're right. You're good to pick me up on it, by the way, because I'm actually an optimist. I am very optimistic fundamentally about the opportunity. My frustration isn't from looking back, but looking forward. I can see the opportunity here. So let's talk about the residential for a second. It is, in my opinion, it's a really good example of exactly the right thing we should be doing. Accelerate the transition to renewables, provide storage, liberate and ignite the residential market. Great. I love everything about it. The missed opportunity is if all they had been able to do is say, and 20% of that must be 80% Australian content, not rebadged.
20% Australian or 80% Australian?
20%. Just make it, you don't have to change anything. And because that's taxpayer dollars. So that would have been 20% would be $1.6 billion in spend. It's an $8 or $9 billion total market spend.
Just to explain this to people, the government's given $2.3 billion, but that's only part of the rebate because it pays maybe a third, sometimes 45% of the battery. But then you obviously need the homeowner to put money in it as well. So the 2.3 get definitely doubled. So we got to 4.6, possibly 5.6 by the time you look at what the overall value is. But then you also got the installation costs and the associated transport and all the other kind of things to it. Yeah. So altogether, possibly, I think we're looking more like around the $6-7 billion investment that this 2.3 will follow through in. So we could argue between 9 to 7, somewhere in between. But definitely it's not just the government money. Private money has to go on top of it to electrify these homes with batteries. So you're right.
Well, so let's say it's $6 billion. So that's $1.2 billion it would have been of Australian content. $1.2 billion over, and it's compressed. It's only going to be over a two-year period, it looks like. So what does $1.2 billion of local manufacturing do? It probably builds 4 or 5 factories. It certainly hires more than a couple of thousand people. But it's not that matters. What it does is it creates the DNA to do other things. So the reason BYD is a battery power is because they took Tesla in and allowed Tesla to do a bunch of stuff and learned from Tesla and then took over fundamentally. I mean, that's a short story. So you get the training and the muscle and the DNA of the supply chain gets up. By the time we finished, we were getting all our steel. Most batteries are steel, plastics, PCBs, and wire and looms and stuff. There's a bit of the cells in there as well, but most of it's very unglamorous stuff. All of that was coming from Australia. So you create the supply chain. That $1.6 billion or $1.2 billion creates a few factories, new businesses, hires them, gets a DNA, and the supply chain. And the rule of thumb in advanced manufacturing is for every 1 direct employee, you have 4 indirect. Those are the jobs you create that are supply chain related. So if you have 1,000 people triggered, you're really creating 5,000 jobs. So all of that would have been triggered by one clause in the subsidy program. All of that would have been triggered by that. So these things are...
But none of the opposition questioned it. Nobody in the media questioned it. And anybody in the industry who knows what's going on would have thought, oh, well, this is a direct wealth transfer of $6 billion, let's make it, to China. Because, I mean, that is it. I mean, there are a few little Australian batteries around. There's Red Earth, for example. But in general, when you see what's being sold, and I mean, even we here on our channel, we've checked those batteries out. They give a good end result to the end customer. They do reduce their electricity bill. But at the end of the day, they are all coming from one place. But how do you think it's playing out with this rush to get them out? Are we going to have issues with safety and some of those batteries are cheaper products and they'll have issues? And do we have house fires and all of those things? I mean, what's your gut feel about all of that?
Yes, I think, well, let's, so for those of you that are any electrical work done in your house, generally speaking, it takes longer than it costs more than you think. Now, imagine, I don't know what you've got done. Let's say you get your board rewired or you get something added to your house. Generally speaking, the electrician shows up and it takes a few days, costs a lot of money. Imagine if you said to the electrician, I want you to do it in 6 hours. And I know you haven't done it many times, and my house will be different slightly from others. Do it quickly, get out of there, don't come back again with technology you're not used to. It's going to be a problem. Now compound that with competitive pressure. You need to do it quick, get the next one, and you need to get your rebates in. So even if everybody that's now installing were professional, well-trained, knew what they were doing, familiar with the technology, it would be high risk because you're compressing everything into time. You're removing their ability to think properly and do it properly, and time moves.
But just on the time to explain, what the government has done is the rebate goes down every year by 20% till 2030. And so... and till they have, if they're going to last that long with the money. And so there is this pressure on the industry, on the supply chain, on the installers, because let's say make it the 31st of December. If I can get it installed on the 30th of December, I get, and it's a 50 kilowatt hour, I get $18,000 in rebate. But if I get it installed on the 1st of January 2026, I lose 20% on my rebate. So there's this constant whip of getting it done quick, as many as possible, etc. So you're right. There is actually not the time always to do care.
Well, it's the old thing. You know, you've got your 3 gears. You want it cheap, fast, or good. And you can only choose 2 of them. And so right now, we're getting them cheap and fast, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I think electrical work done, there's 8 in a typical, all of these batteries are getting bigger, but even in a Powerwall, there's about 8,000 times the energy in a Powerwall as your mobile phone. That's a lot of energy in a small space if the electrical work is done in a hurry. And then if it's done in a hurry times several tens of thousands of homes, then you have a problem. And then, as I learned from a guy I knew a long time ago, used to run LG solar panel, told me 10 years ago, handsome German guy, told me that on the residential space, of the 600 solar installers from a few years ago, there'd be maybe 100 left because they orphan very quickly. So most of these installers installing today will be gone tomorrow when some problem comes in. So you have almost perfect storm here. You have people installing things they're not familiar with in a hurry, with high amounts of energy in a small space with technology they don't understand, running software nobody's in control of. Not great fit, Marcus, not a great fit. So
if you put it like that, but I got to put a plug in here. On our website, we do actually list about 50 installers, and we literally have one in Australia because we've gone around Australia and we used my 20 years in the industry to pick the better guys in this industry to do it. And they actually now pushing customer back and pushing them into next year because they have their in-house staff, they have their quality control. They actually worry to touch some of the new batteries that have come in till they have been in the country for 2 or 3 or 4 years to establish. So they go for the companies that have been there, 4 or 5 years already in Australia. So they're selecting more product that is safer. They haven't changed their processes. They're willing to lose some business, but not to rush it. So there is actually a group of installers around. And the golden rule is it's the local bloke that has had that 10, 15 years in solar. They've survived it. They've seen product come and die. And it's the Australian consumer law that actually contributes to that, because the Australian consumer law says if that battery manufacturer that sold you the battery has decided to leave the country and they sold it directly to the installer then holds the baby in terms of the warranty, the responsibility, and all like that. So the installer who wants to go in for the quick cash closes their company, and Solar Super Shine becomes Solar Super Shine, and it starts all over. The customer has nothing. They got piece of paper of warranties, looked all good, nothing. So you got to pick somebody who actually is willing to kick that tire for you. And we got these guys on our website. Now, can I put my hand in the fire for every single one of them? They all look good. They all seem to do the right thing. Most of them are known for 10 years. But if you want the safest bet on installers, check the ones out on our site, because we've done the vetting and we actually exactly predict that, because we've been to installs now, batteries, and you look at, I've seen one, it was installed on clay, on 2 bricks, in an area that the water runs through on the side of the house.
Right.
In order to fasten it onto the house, it was screwed on with 8 brackets, which you think would be okay, but they decided to screw them all into the mortar area because that's what it's easier instead of really the hard brick. So if that weight of that 200 kilogram battery in a wet day with the clay getting soft is pushing the battery off the wall, there's nothing holding it back, okay? The whole thing started at that particular house, which is a single-phase house, where they delivered the 3-phase battery. So that's how good the investigation on it was. And the owner has now only paid his 10% deposit because he's still not happy that the thing doesn't work, okay? They made him to do the firmware upgrade. They made lucky the guy's a bit of a computer whiz, okay? And they couldn't find a spot where to install it with all the rules where it has to have away from the safety house, except they found this one spot, but it had a vent from under the house below it. So they, through the website, taught him how to make his vent fireproof so they could, before they come and turn the battery up. So this homeowner is going to Bunnings trying to find fireproof material to make his house safe enough so the installer can install the 3-phase battery on a single-phase house.
Oh my God. Well, you know what it is? I'm really glad you called me up on it, because there are some outstanding professionals in this field. Hewan runs a good organization. But there are lots of those guys that it's all about process. If folks are quality, you get what you pay for. You know, if you vibe in the wrong thing, these guys are moving at 1,000 miles an hour and they feel a bit cowboyish. They're probably cowboyish. The professionals that got processes and worry about quality are going to be the ones. Because these are dangerous things in the wrong hands. So you got to put them in the right way. I'm glad you called me on that.
It's just a box, but there's a lot of energy into it, and it's not something where you feel if I pay $3,500 for it, I should be fine, because at that price point, corners will have to be cut. It's too good to be true. And look, I don't want to call this the Pink Bats 2.0, because I actually felt that the insulation scheme was a very good scheme and it got politicized. And my fear is that at the moment we rushed this. In my belief, we should have allowed only 10 batteries to be picked. They would have had to have at least 30, 40 people in Australia as a backup team. They would have had to go through rigorous testing. They should have had Australian content, and we should have actually narrowed this. Now at the moment we've got 80, 90 products all coming into Australia. We already know that can some of these manufacturers not survive, because as soon as the battery rebate slows down a bit, the volume does not sustain as many of the ones we got in. So we will see these battery manufacturers disappear again, and people will be sitting there, we used to say in the old days, with an inverter with a boat anchor. But in this case, this thing can't be used as a boat anchor because nobody will want them, because we can't recycle them at the moment. And so if it's dead, how the hell do you get it out of your house?
Yeah, we had this for a while, a surge of what they call the Internet of Things. These devices like security cameras, you could stick up wireless security cameras or doorbells and all these devices, talking speakers, these type of things. They all run software, and nobody ever updates the software on those devices. So some people have cameras that are run for years ago. Who knows what that software is doing? I know it's not good. Software ultimately, these cheap and cheerful, things that get...
He doesn't want to say nasty.
I know. These things, ultimately, your safety is largely been determined by the quality of the install and what the software is doing. And if you don't know what the software is doing and then nobody's paying attention to it, it's not great. And I would say, I mean, I
because there's a battery management system that tells the cells when, to slow down to charge and all this stuff. And if suddenly there's a bug discovered and they don't get updated, then you can have a problem, isn't it?
Well, I say that you know, with these sort of things, particularly at the low end, that race to bottom one, when I say you're sleeping with the door open, that's what I mean, because who knows, anybody, that famously, you'll know this in the inverters, famously a lot of these inverters come in with the same password. It's incredible. So, but at least inverters can't blow up. So if you don't know what the software is doing, you go to sleep at night and anybody can have a look at what your battery's doing and do whatever you want to do. Sounds a bit tinfoil hat, but I wouldn't do it. The security of these systems is very important. Your granny is involved. Your poor granny is sleeping with a battery in her cupboard, and you don't want anything to go wrong there. So I just think
depending on what's in the will of granny.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that's true. But yeah, look, I mean, I keep on going the same way. In essence, I think it's bloody fantastic that we're doing it because it accelerates everything. But I think we keep on coming back to the same thing. It's the execution that another missed opportunity. If we had just bitten the bullet and said, we're going to have some Australian content, we're going to have some rules. I like your idea of having you have to pick winners here. You have to say, these are certified. We do it all the time. You can't just buy device and plug it into your. There's a reason we have electrical standards. So just stick to those standards. You can do both. We can walk and chew gum at the same time with this sort of stuff, and so we just have to be a bit clever with it. Anyway,
just on, I've got one last thing because we've been going for a long time. This is a very long podcast. No, it's a good one. I mean, there's a lot of information there. I didn't know that Scottish people could talk so much, and then a combination with me, it's deadly. But just to be on the fair side for the batteries, the minister has worked with the Smart Energy Council to put a much more better regime together than, let's say, in some of the things in the past. The rigor in terms of the install, the type of photos they have to take and all of those things is much stronger. But I tell you what, people who are kind of smart of outsmarting the system, they always find a way to still do the cutting the corner stuff. And then the rule gets changed and it gets tightened more. And then all the good guys have to do more work for that one evil bastard who found a way to cut the corner. So, and unfortunately, the ingenuity of people who want to find a way to break the rule and find a quick way to do crap, it's incredible. Their creativity is admirable. And that's why batteries like the one I just saw installed and we made a video about, they are actually out there. But we don't want them out there. The whole industry doesn't want them out there because the media who doesn't believe in climate change and who thinks, this is all a hoax, they will use samples in the future as they occur to then try to vilify the whole industry. The whole industry is giving people at the moment low electricity bills. They are actually allowed to take charge of their own home and able to change their behavior, and it's done at a cost factor that they can afford it. So it starts a whole new industry. So there's a lot of positives. Unfortunately, as I said, there's always that odd one that sells on price, not on what it's delivered. And there's always people, Australians, we're all bargain hunters, and there's always a dumbo willing to give it a go. So, but coming back to it now, so you've worked, how many years you worked on Energy Renaissance?
10 years. 10 years, yeah.
Okay. So we've got a man here. He doesn't look like a broken man. He actually looks like he bounces still like a freaking tennis ball. But I'm telling you now, if I would have 10 years worked on something, I got it to make the manufacturing, I got the battery going, and then I had to close and call in an administrator 6 days before potentially a lifeline was available. I'm surprised you're not sitting in a dark room and you actually got out to have this podcast. How are you personally handling that kind of disappointment? I would nearly call it's a bit like Steve Jobs when he got sacked from Apple. Yes, he got himself up and he built Next and then he went to Pixar and then he went back to Apple. But there's a very strong self-belief you have to bounce back from that. So how you personally handled all that and the staff that came with you, that you had to say that, sorry, the dream is not there anymore.
Yeah, it was definitely not about me. The saddest moment was, we had a remarkable, first of all, the shareholders were amazing. The people invested in this business. They invested because they wanted an Australian success story and they really backed it. Then you had the staff. We had to show up, turn the lights off in this beautiful factory. It was all kitted out. And those poor staff who'd really worked day and night. So it's really tough. But fundamentally, this is not about Energy Renaissance and not even about manufacturing. I think it's saddest for the country because that's genuinely how I felt. I felt like if we were lucky, we have enough, we put in a lot of money, a lot of time, we built something. It was there. Most people can't even get there. Most people wouldn't have even got that far. And if we can't make that succeed with all the money we put in, all the effort we had, all the partners we had, it's really sad for the country. So I did feel really, I feel a bit more like a canary in a coal mine. So where I'm at is, so from my perspective, ultimately I'll do some other. I've never had a business fail before, and fundamentally the manufacturing business failed, fundamentally. So for me, it was a remarkable experience, and kind of some things can fail if they don't get the right support at the right time. And that time was just wrong. So from my perspective, what I learned from it is this. You can have all the support you want from the people, great staff, great technology, But if you cannot enlist at the right time, the right support, you in Australia, you're going to really struggle. I personally, I've landed in a funny place. I feel like in some ways, I said 10 years ago, when we said we'd build batteries in Australia, when we said we'd do all these things, build a factory, nobody believed this. And I feel like I proved the point you can do it. I feel like you can do it. Just because we are run out of, and we literally run out of time, doesn't mean everybody else will. I think now it's different. Now, if you do it tomorrow, if anybody wants to do it, I will help you, because now there are funds available. Now the market is more mature. In some ways, we were too early to the market. So there's a big opportunities for people that want to do it now that didn't exist before. The wind's behind your back here. People want this. There's big funds, big partners, big customers. It doesn't take much to imagine that we could finally get the feds to make some sort of Australian content rule. So it's close. So from my perspective, if all we did is proved, yes, it's possible, and now let's do it right, then that's something. I don't regret it at all. And I lost a ton of money, but I don't regret it. I feel like I told my girls I'd do it 10 years ago and we did it. And I think we can be a lesson for other folks as well. So I'm going to help anybody that has got my full support. Anybody who wants to do this, got my full support, because I think this is the right thing for the country. This is about Australia. It's the right thing for the country. We end at the start, which is we have to do this. So fine, learn from us.
So what really Craig potentially is saying is he has walked this way for 10 years. He's like the Sherpa to get onto the mountain. And if you want to climb that mountain, maybe he could be a good advisor for you, because he knows where the traps are. He can smell bullshit when it poops out of whatever politician's mouth or bureaucrat's mouth. And he's able to potentially guide people on that path because he's been on that path. Am I kind of getting that right?
Yeah, I'm going to help anybody. I mean, like I'm going to stick, yes, and I'm going to keep nagging the government, NRF arena and the feds, because I passionately believe it's the right thing for the country. So anybody needs help will get help. You know, we didn't have that, and it would have helped. So yeah, I figure we're all in this together, right? You know, I'm an old man. I can help some people, right, Markus?
No, you still got bounce. He's the Braveheart for industry.
Yeah, that's right. How did Braveheart end? I never saw the end of it.
I think he died.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not 100% sure.
Hung, drawn, and quartered.
Yes. Well, look, love the passion. Love that you're not really pitting yourself. You know, he rode a horse for 10 years. It didn't make it to the end of the Melbourne Cup, but by God, did he get a good shot. Really appreciate it. I mean, there's an honesty, a passion, a learning out of this, and hopefully you guys who've watched the podcast felt like as inspired by kind of a bit of a sad story, but still inspired like I felt today. Thank you again, Craig, for being so open, so sharing, so passionate. And hopefully you guys all can understand his Scottish accent. If there's something we cannot see in the when we watch it, if we don't understand it, you're not going to take offense. A couple of things, we put some subtitle underneath it.
It should be entirely subtitled, I imagine. Neither of us are talking English, really.
Well, ich spreche Deutsch sehr gut. Was sagst du denn da? Okay, bis dann. Auf Wiedersehen.
Please support the channel by liking the video, hit that subscribe button, and ring the bell, and check out all our other videos. Want more energy answered? Visit yourenergyanswers.com for quality energy products, tools and calculators, and find your quality local installers. You're still here? I'll see you next time. Bye.